Okay, hi folks. Karen asked me if we would be running any workshops this year. We did a mincemeat one last year. Obviously we can't do it this year. There just isn't room in the kitchen. We managed to get 6 people in there last year, but it's not going to happen. So then she said, can we do a Zoom mincemeat making? And I said no, because I shall probably swear if it's live. And now we have Simon behind the camera, so any boo-boos I do make, Simon will correct. So if you do at some point hear a male voice as a voiceover, you'll know why. So we're going to do some mincemeat. Attached to this post will be the recipe with all the quantities on. I'm going to talk you through them as I chuck them in the bowl. It's dead easy. It's reasonably priced when you look at the price of buying a jar of mincemeat. It's so much nicer, and you can adapt it to what your family or you like. Not everybody likes some of the ingredients, so we're going to do some substitutes and we'll talk about those as we go through. Okay, so you will need a nice big mixing bowl. We're not going to cook it today. You don't cook it today. You leave it at least 24 hours at room temperature, just covered. Lets the fruit swell and the flavours mingle and the spices kind of go through the mix. And then next time you've got your oven on, or you've got an hour or so out to spare, you can bung it through the oven and it's done. It's really, really easy. This recipe will give you about 3 jars. Not that you have to put it in a jar, you can keep it in a plastic tub in the fridge. It's absolutely fine. You might just cook with it straight away and not need to fridge it still, but there we are. So here we go. So I've got the recipe in front of me so I don't forget. So we need 225 grams of apples. Right. Commercial mincemeat has cooking apples in, and that's why you get that sort of cloudy, carbohydrate-y look through it. It's because they're cooking apples and obviously they fall as they cook, so you don't see the shreds of apple. I would prefer to use a cooker eater like a James Grieve or a Charles Ross, and they're an apple that does both. So you get a little bit of both. You get the flavour and the sweetness of an eating apple, but you get the way that it falls and fluffs with a cooking apple. If you can't get those, use half and half, 1 of each. All of this recipe gives you weights. I would say they are, to an extent, a movable feast. So if you like a bit more apple or you don't like apple, we'll just jiggle it around a little bit. So, first thing we're going to do, we're just going to grate a couple of apples. I'm sorry, this is going to look really boring. It's not particularly visual, but we're just going to grate a couple of apples into the bowl. Big side on your grater. I have washed my hands. Don't peel them, don't cut them. Life's too bloody short for a start. Just grate them to about 225 grams, which I reckon is 2 biggish apples. Windfalls are fine. Anything that falls off your trees in the garden. You could even use crab apples. They would be quite tart, but if you don't mind a sharper flavour, that would be okay. But obviously there would be quite a lot of grating involved because crab apples are tiny, so you need quite a few. But, you know, I'm all in favour of using something that you can get for nothing, or you can borrow off your neighbour's tree or in the hedgerow as you walk in the dog. I think that's absolutely fine. This is going to get a bit messy, I can tell. And we're in a room with no sink, so that'll be nice. There's one. Just leave the core, you just work your way around the core. And nobody's going to know the peel's on. Why would you bother? I'm all for shortcuts. There you go, done. And that's all that I need that grater for. You might need it for other things, but we will come to that in a moment. Apples, lovely jubbly, wet hand. Short break while I go and wash my hand. Clean hands. This time I brought a nice damp cloth with me, so I shan't have to go away then. So getting back, apples. Next thing on the list are 50 grams of nuts. Use what you like. Obviously you're not going to use salted peanuts. Use pecans if you're posh. Use macadamia nuts if you're posh. Use cashew nuts, they look quite pretty. Almonds, either whole or flaked or whatever you like. I have got walnuts. Here's one I measured earlier. So easy. Ta-da! 50 grams of nuts. As I said, oh, you could do a mix. That's fine. It's whatever you fancy. If you like nutty, crunchy, put a bit more in. That's absolutely fine. 2 teaspoons of mixed spice. I don't expect you to have great big pots like this. you never know. Don't mind me, just waving at people in the background. 2 teaspoons of mixed spice. Again, if you don't like the sort of spicy flavours of Christmas, you don't have to put it in. Put a bit more, put a bit less. That's absolutely fine. So that's mixed spice. Cinnamon, 1/4 of a teaspoon. I quite like cinnamon. I always think it smells like Christmas. It's the best thing about making this mix, is the smell. When you mix it at the end, it's fab. And 1/4 teaspoon freshly grated nutmeg. Okay, not everybody, again, is going to have freshly grated nutmeg. I would always suggest you use whole nutmegs rather than already grated, just because it's fresher and there's a better flavour. It's the difference between instant coffee and ground coffee. It's as simple as that. I've got a little mill, quite posh, but you can just use the small side of your grater. Or if you've got a little nutmeg grater, sometimes get a little tiny one to keep your nutmeg inside. So 1/4 teaspoon-ish. This is rather nice because it kind of shaves bits off. It's lovely. I think you can still buy these on Amazon. I'm not sure. It's just called nutmeg mill. I like nutmeg, so I'm kind of guessing 1/4 teaspoon, and then I'm going to guess about another 1/4 teaspoon because I like nutmeg. And I love the smell. Super. That'll do. Suet. Okay, 2 schools of thought. If you're vegetarian, you're not going to want beef suet, obviously. If you are vegetarian or you don't like the thought of beef suet, you're going to use vegetable suet. The problem with that is it's made from palm oil. The vegetable suet that we use here and that we sell in the shop is, quote, ethically sourced. So it's about as good as you can get. Personally, I would use beef suet, but then again, I eat everything. But we're making this here for everybody here, including vegetarians and vegans. So this is vegetarian suet. It is gluten-free. For anybody that perhaps wants to make themselves some gluten-free pastry, they can still use our mincemeat. Normally this suet would have like flour on it, stop it sticking together. This is gluten-free. So that's that gone in. Okay, dried fruits. There are lots of different grades of dried fruit. Some are really good and cheap, which is fantastic. Some are really quite expensive, but you will see and taste the difference. I would get the best ones you can get. You're not using a huge amount, so it's not a big jump in price. So we are using raisins. 175 grams of raisins. If you can get the nice fat Thompson raisins, the yellow ones, do, because they are lovely and they are plumper. They are Thompson ones. They're not the bestest, but they're pretty good. Then you are going to want 115 grams sultanas, chuck them in. This recipe calls for currants. I don't like currants. I find them a little bit gritty because they're quite tiny and they quite often still have a bit of seed in there. I really don't like them very much. So I substitute dried cranberries, which I do like. I think it helps the colour, makes it a pretty colour because you get the red coming through instead of all the fruit being brown. So I use the same weight, but I use dried cranberries. If you don't like either of those and you want something a bit sweeter, or you want to jiggle it a bit, the recipe calls for 115 grams. You could use chocolate glacé cherries if you want instead. Just to give you a little bit of a break and a little bit of a different taste. Entirely up to you. Please yourselves. The next thing the recipe calls for is citrus peel. Again, a lot of people don't like peel. That's what puts a lot of, certainly kids, off things like Christmas cake or fruit scones or barra-brie, things like that. They don't like the peel. Karen here does not like peel. What I have done in the past is we've done our own candied peel for the mincemeat. It's dead easy. This is an orange, yes, but I would use a grapefruit normally. And all you do, take the peel off, nice and thick, put it in a saucepan with a lot of sugar. Sugar to cover all of the peel. For this recipe, you'd only need one. So your tiny saucepan, cover it with sugar and just enough water to dissolve your sugar and boil it for about an hour. And then leave it in the syrup. and then come back to it next morning and you have got big wedges of candied peel. Just chop it up. It tastes so much nicer and it's not got that chewy edge to it. So you get all the flavour of the citrus without the chewiness. So I did do it, I made it last night and I've left it in the fridge because I'm an idiot and I couldn't be bothered to go home, sorry. So we're going to have commercial peel, I'm afraid. This one's not bad and it actually does smell like citrus because some of them don't smell of anything at all. So chuck that in. Again, if you really do not want peel and you don't even think I'm going to make my own a little bit better, perhaps leave your currants in and substitute your peel with cranberries. I don't know. Try it. See how you feel. Brown sugar. Okay. Lots of different sorts of brown sugar you could use. How much do you want it to taste? So if you really like the sort of heavy molasses, treacly flavour, use a molasses sugar. Use a soft brown, a sticky one. You get much more flavour. I want the flavour of the fruit and the nuts to come through. So this is bog standard Demerara, but actually any brown sugar will do. You've got golden granulated at home, that's fine. If you really are stuck and you've only got granulated, use that. It's all right. Sugar. And then we need the zest and the juice of 1 lemon and 1 orange. Hence the lemon and the orange. Okay, you could grate it on the fine side of your grater. I like one of these. This is a citrus reamer. Excuse me. And what this does, and Simon is now going to come into close-up, what this does is it takes nice pieces of the rind off. It never goes as far as the zest, so you don't get the bitterness through. And if you do it over your bowl, all the lovely zest and the oils that are coming out of the fruit will go into your bowl. But as I say, if you haven't got one of these, that's absolutely fine. Use the fine side on your grater, or if you've got something like a Parmesan grater, that's also very good. So we will now take a break while I finish doing this because it's time intensive. Bloody lovely. I've wiped my hands in the cloth that I brought earlier. What I didn't bring earlier was a chopping board because I'm an idiot. So we're going to do it freehand. We just need the juice out of these two. I suppose most people will know this trick. If I've got a chopping board, I do it on a chopping board. Roll them and squash them, and that just breaks up the cells inside a little bit, and it just makes them a little bit easy to squeeze. You might have a proper citrus squeezer at home, you know, one of the little dome-shaped thingies with the sauce around it. I haven't got one, because how often do I squeeze orange and lemon juice out when I'm making mincemeat? So I've never bothered buying one, so we'll just squeeze, play it by ear. Here we go. Try not to get the pips in. If they do, well, that's just a bonus. And I just shove my thumbs in and break things up. Nice juicy orange. Can't see the pips. Jolly good. And we want this juice because that's what's going to make the fruit swell. So if you have got, by the time you've got into your orange and found out it's a bit, just do another one. If you've got another one, if you've got some orange juice in the fridge, use that instead. It's fine. As I say, all we wanted to do is to put a little bit of liquid into the mix. You'll get some liquid that comes out of the apples. I've got the liquid out. This doesn't matter if bits of the flesh fall in. So, make sure your hands are okay. Okay. There's that. No pips in that one either. Hurrah! Deep joy. I suppose really I could have squeezed them into a bowl and see if any pips dropped out, but like I said, could have one of those posh things from Lakeland that you sort of screw into your citrus fruit. Never seen the point of spending about £12 on something like that either. There we are. It's all about do and mend, as my granny would say. Oops. Maybe I'll put a pip there and just fish it out. I love the smell of this. What you could use, fresh limes, they'd be nice. Lime zest in it and lime juice. Perhaps 2 limes to 1 lemon. or thereabouts. You could use different sorts of oranges. Ooh, there's a lot of pips there. I am going to use this bottle because there's a lot of pips. Yeah, you could use pink grapefruit. You could use different sorts of oranges, tangerines. Clementines wouldn't work because you wouldn't get any zest off of those. But what you could do, of course, is make different batches, see which ones you like the best. She said, chucking pips about with abandon. There we go. Dry my hands off again. Okay, and that, my little lovelies, is that. Lovely good stir, nice for the kids to do if you've got little ones. You could set them on doing things like squeezing and grating, or weighing things out. I used to love doing things like that with both of my grannies. That's how I learned to cook. Standing on a little stool because I couldn't reach the counter, and playing with bits of pastry and bread dough and things like that. And look where that got me. So that is what it's going to look like. Not very prepossessing, slightly moist. So we're going to cover that with some cling wrap. Don't bother fridging it, don't need to fridge it. If you're cooking it tomorrow, don't need to fridge it. If it's going to be a few days, then fine, stick it in the fridge. Won't hurt. You could leave it for at least a week in the fridge and it wouldn't hurt at all. You can wipe that down, I think. When you're ready to cook it, oven-proof dish and some tin foil and a really, really low oven. Don't feel, well, if I do it a bit quicker, it won't take so long in the oven. What will happen is that your dried fruit dries up and it starts to get that really nasty bitter taste, and you don't want that. You want it to be unctuous. Give it a couple of stirs through the cooking time. Your instructions are all on the recipe, that will be included, or the link to the recipe will be included. Give it a stir a couple of times because this suet is going to break down, and you want to keep mingling the flavours as well. So once your suet has melted in the oven, you'll stir it through. When you take it out, when it's finished cooking, have a look at it. It will look probably bloody awful because there'll be all the fat sitting on the top. That's the suet. Stir it a few times whilst it's going cool. Don't put it into hot jars like you would with jam or pickles. You want to go in cold. So you're going to stir it a few times, let it get nice and cool, and then you're going to stir in at least, emphasising at least, 3 tablespoons of something delicious and boozy. Depends what you like. Do you want brandy? Do you want whiskey? Do you want amaretto? Do you want port? Do you like sherry? I would go with the darker spirits because they will give you more depth of flavour than, say, a vodka or a white rum or something like that. And it's what you've got in the cupboard. I mean, I have sherry in the cupboard and it gets used for trifle and Christmas cake, and that's it. So a bottle of sherry lasts me a very long time. But yeah, what you've got, or what you like. Cherry brandy left over from last year, that would be delish. That would be really nice. I really like amaretto, so that's what I tend to use. If you've got kids, they're not going to want that. They're not going to want the boozy flavours. So you could always, if it needs a little bit more liquid, use a bit of orange juice. Something like that will be absolutely fine. Or if you've got teetotalers in the family, use something like a little bit of orange juice. You won't need a lot. It's only 3 tablespoons of booze. So just in case it needs a little bit more liquid, juice is absolutely fine. Nothing to worry about. But yeah, play with it. Cooking should be fun. And something like this that isn't a staple meal, and it's not something that you're going to make every week or even every month. Have a bit of fun with it. Play around with the ingredients. If you want to put peach schnapps in there, then you put peach schnapps in there. That's absolutely fine. And there you go. That will keep, because you're not putting it in a sterilised jar. I would keep it in the fridge, but it will keep till next year in the fridge. And we've actually had one lady, hello Helen, Machbeislon, who still has the one that she made at the workshop last year. So there you go, it's absolutely fine. It will keep, but keep it in the fridge because you're not going to sterilise jars. So have fun, let us know how you get on, send us a photo. That'd be nice to see. So thank you very much. There you go, it's all yours.